Hello, everyone. Minesh Gurn, aka the Psychedelic Scientist here, letting you know about a scheduling change for the second cohort of our 8-week live taught online course, Psychedelic Neuroscience Demystified: How Psychedelics Alter Consciousness and Produce Therapeutic Effects. This course is now starting on November 1st, so you've still got some time to enroll. The course consists of a combination of live group classes and in-depth video lectures, which will give you a solid understanding of the key concepts and findings in psychedelic neuroscience. You'll also have ample opportunity to connect with like-minded peers to discuss all of the content. We make things as accessible and relevant as possible by highlighting real-world practical applications and building from the basic to the more complex. So whether you're a mental health professional, researcher, or just interested in expanding your knowledge, this course will provide you with a deeper understanding of the neuroscience of psychedelics. Classes start on November 1st, and you can find out more information and enroll at psychedeliceducationcenter.com.
Every year, psychedelics are becoming more accepted into mainstream culture, and people all over the world are asking themselves, how can I get the skills, foundations, and tools to build a meaningful career in psychedelics? Well, that is exactly where Vital comes in. Our 12-month interdisciplinary practitioner training program is robust, inclusive, and most of all transformative, both personally and professionally. Our graduates have gone on to do many different things in the psychedelic space, like working at ketamine clinics, consulting on clinical trials, opening a retreat center, starting their own coaching or wellness practice, and even launching a psychedelic media and merchandise platform, and so much more. Classes start January 23rd, and our application deadline is December the 20th. But if you apply and enroll before November the 19th, you'll save $750 from tuition. Head to vitalpsychedelictraining.com to download our full course curriculum. You can also check out our events page at psychedelicstoday.com to sign up for an upcoming Q&A session or to join an expert-led topical taster webinar. Find out whether Vital is the transformative journey you've been looking for.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's Joe here. Just wanted to let you know about an upcoming class we have going in Denver. We're actually producing a Navigating Psychedelics 2-day edition for all of you out there that want some in-person ed. So we just ran it in Miami, and it was an amazing success. And we're going to do it again in Denver on November 10 and 11. And we would love to have you there. If you want to learn about it, psychedelicstoday.com/events. We are going to run through 2 days of material. We're actually even going to give you an impressive breathwork experience that hopefully helps you understand that experience and how it's useful. So anyway, go over to psychedelicstoday.com/events to learn more, and we would love to see you there in Denver.
Hello, this is Alexa Jesse with Psychedelics Today, and I am here with Dom, the CEO of DoseConnect. Dom, please share a little bit about yourself with our audience.
Yeah, thanks, Alexa, for having me. My name is Dom Farnan. I live in Southern California with my family, and I'm the founder and chief conscious connector of DoseConnect. We are a first-of-its-kind talent advisory and HR consultancy within the psychedelic therapeutic space. So there are companies that are emerging in that world and will continue to grow and be founded in the next couple of years as things become available, federally here for us. So we want to be at the forefront of that and really want to work with founders to understand their visions, their values, and help them build conscious companies from the ground up. So that's kind of what we do and what we're about.
Amazing. So why psychedelics? How did you get into this space?
Yeah. So funny story. I was not a psychedelic user or experimenter in college or high school. As I've met many people in the industry in the last couple of years, I often hear like, oh, I did this in high school or college or whatever, but that was not me. I was very ingrained in corporate jobs and, I worked in HR and talent. So a little bit more conservative. And it was in about 2020 where I felt like I hit a personal rock bottom. And even then I didn't start experimenting with psychedelics until a year later, where I went to Costa Rica and I had my first high dose psilocybin journey in an effort to save my marriage or do something different, or really just like try something I've never tried before. And then from that experience, I continued to work with the medicine. So I did a few other high dose psilocybin experiences. And then in 2022, I went all in and I felt like did all the things, tried everything from ayahuasca to San Pedro to LSD to 5-MeO. And so this year in 2023, I've done a couple of experiences, but I'm really integrating more everything that I've learned and uncovered about myself and the world in the last few years. But I would say what led me to even found the company in this space was my hands-on experience and the transformation that I've been going through through using and experimenting with psychedelics.
Amazing. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm also in an integration period right now, and through work with plant medicines and also just other like spiritual healing work, realizing that I kind of think life is like one integration after the other if we're doing it right, or at least doing like the work and healing. You just mentioned you didn't attend the conference because you're honoring your integration. And I think that's really beautiful. It's definitely something I've been thinking a lot about. Like, I did go to the event, but I was way less like party mode than I would have normally been. I'm like, no, I'm going there to network and connect and to learn. And like, I had my one late night on Friday. I mean, I still was exhausted, but definitely honoring like being in that period of integration. And it's kind of a really beautiful way to move through life, really being like, that's not a great space for me right now because I'm like really receptive and tender. And, so it's really fascinating. Like everyone says how important preparation and integration is, but it's like, no, I get it now. Like it really, really is so important.
Yeah, it all kind of caught up with me April of this year, where I just felt like I was going so fast and I experimented so much last year. And after every experience, I was right into the next experience, be it a healing modality or psychedelics or a retreat or whatever. And so there was never any stillness. And so I kind of hit a wall in April. And I had already booked a few other things all the way through June, and I was going to go to the conference. And then I'm like, no, I just have to be alone and let the dust settle of all of the things that have been surfaced in the last couple of years. And so that feels really good. I mean, I've got to be honest, last week I was in Austin for a day where I had a 5-MeO experience by myself with my guide, and I got back home and I have nothing on my calendar until the end of September as far as travel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, finally I've arrived at this place of like peace and spaciousness and really being able to sit and be with everything that I have seen and learned about myself and my life and where I'm at on this ride. And I got to be honest, like I didn't have FOMO. I had JOMO, and I was like so happy for everybody who was at the conference, and I was like so supportive of my friends who are speaking and all of that. But I also feel very complete with supporting from afar and letting myself rest.
That's amazing. Do you have any desire to share more about the journey that you had last week? I've never done 5-MeO, so I don't even like a high level of what that either like physically is like.
Yeah, so it was interesting. It was my second opportunity to have a 5-MeO journey, and it was very different to the first. So last year, my first experience was at the end of September, and I was with a small group, and everybody did their experience and we all had to hold space for each other. At the time, I was really nervous and scared. And the advice that the woman who was serving gave to me was in August, she said, don't do a lot of research and don't ask a lot of people and don't go overboard because you're going to get a lot of different variations of answers. And everyone's experience is so unique and individual for where they're at that, you might hear something that scares you, or you might hear something that's exciting to you or whatever, but it's all different and it may not apply to you at all in your experience. So that was good advice. And so when I was with the group, one of my coaches went first, and then I went like maybe 2 minutes after him, because I didn't really want to see anybody's experience either. I just wanted to go in and say, okay, let me just try this for myself. And the dose that we did was very high, but honestly, I felt like I just completely went offline within a matter of seconds. So kind of closed my eyes. I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and love and calm. And then I evaporated into nothing. There was no me. There was nothing happening. And it felt like I lost the sense of my physical body, but it wasn't scary. And it was dark. And then in that time, it was like bliss. And it was just like nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to be. And then I started coming out of it. But I don't really remember in it. There was not a lot of visuals. There was just black from what I recall. But it was really profound. I was kind of in this like glow for the couple weeks after that. And I had, referred a few friends of mine who ended up sitting with the same woman that I sat with. And then I would hold space for them and be able to be a pillar of energetic strength while they were going in. And so that was really beautiful last year. And then as I was hearing about other people's experiences through their shares, I'm like, yeah, I feel like it's still my medicine, but I don't know. Like you hear a range of different things from people. So long story short, I was working with a different coach, and she invited me and asked me if I wanted to sit with her last week when we had a one-on-one day together. And initially I was like, I don't know. Like I really loved what I already experienced. I don't know if I want to go again and then it be something different. It kind of made me nervous. So I felt into it. I was like a no for a minute. Then I sat with it for a few weeks, and then I'm like, you know what? I feel good. Like I really want to be with you in that energy. So let's do it. So we did. And the dose was much, much smaller, but more profound and like more visual and still very loving and gentle and beautiful. And I don't know, it was just so expansive. And definitely it's only been like less than a week. I'm in this afterglow of the energy of oneness and feeling a deep sense of universal connection and source energy and all the things. So it's really, really beautiful if you ever feel called to do it. And the second time around was interesting because it was like slow and low, like much lower of a dose, but really equally like powerful and a lot more visual, which I loved.
Yeah. And so how was it administered? Are you smoking it?
Yeah, you smoke it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. It's interesting because you said, how long ago was that first experience that you had?
It was back in October of last year.
And you were talking about like just like this vast like nothingness and how coming out of this journey and you're like, I have no travel. Like it seems like you've kind of manifested that like open, spaciousness that you were needing. So, and yeah, that's amazing. I'm happy for you. I need to definitely, I'm a planner for sure. I'm always, I don't know, it's exciting. I mean, especially, networking, like I really love connecting with people, and the work we're doing is really important. Like any part of this industry, we need all of those parts in order to like have people accessing the medicine, just for the full spectrum. And that was actually something I was wanting to, chat with you about, like, where, we have tons of people, I'm sure people asking you too, like, how can we get involved? It's a buzzing industry, like, and I'm curious if you find on the, career side of things, whether it's companies or individuals, like, is there a specific, I don't know, space in the market that has a lot of opportunities? Are there opportunities right now? Is it future opportunities?
I think right now it's definitely future opportunities. So I feel like maybe last year and the year before there was a speed and momentum to growth, and there was a lot of money invested in some of these earlier stage psychedelic therapeutic startups in different domains, not just ketamine, even though ketamine is, legal. But with that, it was probably like a little bit of too much too soon, like too much investment money, too much growth for companies without enough validity from the market to a degree. And so many of those companies have downsized and scaled down in the last few months. And some of them you hear about on LinkedIn or the news, and then others you don't really hear about. You hear about through the grapevine, right? Of companies just quietly shutting their doors right now. So I feel like it's a good reset. And if you're interested in getting into the industry, I would keep your eye on it now and network and get involved in community and get involved in groups like Psychedelic Women or, Moms on Mushrooms or any other industry type of organization and association, as well as going to these events. So if you go to these events and you volunteer, I know like 5 people who just volunteered at the event. And, it's really good to network and meet people and be in and around the crew, and also be able to use your best judgment, because, what I've learned in being in psychedelics and for a year now has been discernment, and that it's not always what you think it is. And you might go in super excited and then you meet people and things start to, become very clear about people's intentions and where they're coming from and things like that. So I've had to learn a few hard lessons in discernment myself through working in this space. But I think my recommendation to anyone trying to get into it would be to be in community and, start building relationships with companies and volunteer your time if you can, because I don't feel like there is a lot of hiring happening at scale. There seems to be a lot more jobs posted, but most of those companies are still very small. Even the people who reach out to us don't necessarily have money to recruit. They have money to make a few hires, but they don't even have money to get the help that they need to make the hires yet. So I feel like we've got a little bit of a ways to go before things really start to accelerate. And then it'll depend like what becomes legal first and how are they regulating this, and that will determine then the types of roles that they need. There was a big shakeup with psychedelic facilitation practitioners and training with Synthesis Institute recently. I was involved in that and had signed up and paid to go to that training. And then a lot of things have shifted in that world, and they've changed the training and whatnot. And so I'm no longer involved in it. But point being, I would say discernment and be in community and just build relationships and use your best judgment and know that it's coming, but it's not fully hit yet.
Yeah, I completely agree, and would say, for myself, that has all been very true. Just networking and being in the spaces, with the people you want to work with. I also think what just came to me is like, how you got your inspiration to bring this, your work to this industry was through working with the medicine. And I think that's actually what the medicine wants. It's like, we all need to work with it and do some deep healing. It feels like there's like a lack of dollars in every industry right now, right? Or except for AI and like VR. But I think specifically in psychedelics, it's like maybe there's an imbalance of the actual healing work being done versus like the just desire to grow. And so I think it's funny, even with, I come from cannabis and people wanting years ago to get into that industry. And it's like, but have you, what is your experience? Like I was brought into both of these industries through personal experiences like you were. And so I think with that, there's a different motivation, like I really just want to educate people. I want people to understand safely, how to use, or if it's even the right medicine for them. But personally, I know it's not for everybody, but I think that if people could at least educate themselves or learn, there's so many different levels. It doesn't always have to be like a deep DMT journey.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, even
agree.
just using CBD, I always say is like the gateway. I think
Yeah.
people are still scared and have not tried CBD, and it's so mellow and
Yeah.
amazing, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was talking with a friend of mine who was at the conference, and she's a psychologist, and she's exploring expanding her practice to incorporate medicine and different types of work like that. And she was saying, you know, her customer and client base and patient base are still very apprehensive and don't really understand. And she herself hasn't done a whole lot of deep healing work with medicine yet, but um, it's not always about the substance or the plant medicine. You know, it is underlying about the healing and being more conscious, you know, as a leader and as a human being and as a contributor to the community that we live in. And so for me, that's what all of this is really grounded in. Like, as much as I'm an advocate, I'm also very much aware that not everyone can leverage these medicines. And, you know, a lot of people are still scared and don't quite know, and maybe they can't handle it and all of that. And that's totally fine. Cause I look at things, and I was telling her yesterday, like, I just look at life as being psychedelic. And there's so many things that you can do in your daily life that create this beautiful experience that don't require any other things to contribute to that.
Yeah, it's something, you know, at Psychedelics today specifically, but I've experienced this too, like breath work. We're really big proponents of breath work and tapping into altered states, you know, with breath. I mean, how incredible is that? But it can also be scary for people. Like I did a very mini breath work session at Psych Sciences because I was just like hopping around from thing to thing, and I was like, I need to like ground for a half hour. And I had like a crazy release in 30 minutes. And it was like, my mind was like, okay, you have 30 minutes. We're going to like go as deep as you can. But, you know, I'm also like in a healing journey right now, and I've done lots of breath work. And, you know, I would definitely encourage people to try breath work. And it's funny because, you know, I have a therapist I've been seeing for, like almost a decade. And he's a Zen priest, and he's like a, you know, white Jewish guy who's like studied as a monk, and he's really fascinating. And every time I'm like trying to figure something out, I'm like, well, what do I do about this? You know, I'm struggling. And he's like, just like do nothing, like drop in, quiet the mind, and like see what comes. And it's so hard in the moment because we all want to try to like fix and figure it out. But the healing is where we can tap into our, you know, higher voice and the outside of us, like our muse, you know, be that channel. But it's amazing to really experience it. It sounds super woo-woo, and then you do it and it's like, oh wait, we're part of something bigger, and all we need to do is listen.
Yeah. It's interesting because my psychedelic experiences have evolved as my healing has continued. So last year when I went to Peru with my first ayahuasca experience, the first night really rocked me. And you can put it in the bucket of like a bad trip, or, you know, I don't believe in bad trips, but it was a very challenging experience. And if I would have explained it to people, they would be like, and then you went back again and you did it again. Like, are you nuts? Like, what the hell? Why was this appealing? But it was such a catalyst in my healing. It uncovered for me the things that were holding me back and that were big traumas in my life that I had no idea were contributing to, you know, keeping me stuck. And then this year I just did another set of ceremony with ayahuasca again in Costa Rica recently. And it was so different, and it was so beautiful, and it was so gentle and loving, and like so feminine, and just a completely different experience. And it was a reflection back to me of the work that I have been doing on myself, because my vessel was clean and my mind was clear and my heart was, you know, more open. And I had gotten rid of a lot of the pain that I was carrying around through just uncovering that a year ago. And so I think that's something that I've recognized too in the last couple of experiences that I've had, is just how much it's like an ecosystem and it all ties together, and beyond just like the ceremony itself, but then incorporating what you get from that and then continuing the healing work with all the other modalities that you use to support yourself.
I love that. That's really beautiful. And it's funny because I have a different experience, but I really relate in how the experiences evolve as you process, and even with like different medicines, they like work with each other. And it's funny because this week when we were at Psych Sciences, like I said, my intention was really to learn. I was feeling like there was a lot going on, and like I couldn't nearly touch anything. I think I went to 2 talks, literally. Like it was crazy, but I was just kind of like going where I felt I needed to go. And one day there were lots of people just like sharing microdoses of mushrooms, like very small amounts, but it felt like everyone was kind of on the same frequency. But for me, I felt like even without like the microdosing, like I felt very aligned. Like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And with this has happened with me, on other psychedelics where you just feel like, you feel your power more because you really feel connected to this like higher self. And I would ask for things like, I really want to like connect with so-and-so. And then like they would appear, and I was kind of kept like testing this. And it was so funny because our last night on Friday, I met these 2 women who were like early 20s, so about like a decade, younger than me. And they were just like asking me a million questions about like career and, all of these things. And it was very much like a mentor moment. And I've connected with them, and I'm actually going to continue to mentor them because we just had this really beautiful connection. And then they left, and like within 10 minutes, I met a woman 10 years older than me, and she was doing the same thing to me for the rest of the night. And it was like this really incredible, like I just got the chills because it was like, wow, like women are amazing, first of all. Like I think in this space specifically, like I didn't really have a mentor 7 years ago when I was like, I'm quitting my tech job and I want to go out on my own. Like I had like moments of mentors, but it was not like one person or a group of people. I think now, especially in the psychedelic community, there, like you said, there's so many groups that are offering that. But I think one-on-one or like small, like true mentorships where you can like ask questions and give guidance. And I know you've done like some coaching. So I'm curious, like your experience with like, have you had a mentor, and do you mentor women? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, good question. And I completely agree with you. Even pre-psychedelics, I've always had mentors and coaches and masterminds and communities and things that I've invested in. And I think that's been a big differentiator and given me like so much more runway than other individuals in my field and in recruiting and people who I would consider peers. And so I'm a huge advocate for investing in yourself first and foremost. That's the best investment you can ever make. And there's ways that you can do it because I know not everyone is coming from the same starting place. And so, there are a lot of opportunities and free resources available and communities to tap into. But I think it's important to call to awareness. Like the community is only as good as you are contributing to it. So you have to be a go-giver and you have to show up to be of service and contribute your own knowledge and wisdom, even if you're the more junior in the pool of people, right? But just even having a voice and sharing that is important. And for you to get back what you need to get and build the relationships that you need to build. I'm just wrapping up a 6-month engagement with a coach of mine, and she is, I don't even know what bucket to put her in. She's like a leadership, spiritual mentor, guru, medicine woman, and she's amazing. And she has the most beautiful energy. And it was interesting because the work that we did together was somewhat kind of framed out, but not really. It was more like energetic. Let's feel how we work together and the conversations that we're having and what she's surfacing in me or bringing into my awareness or reflecting back to me for me to go deeper. That's who I was just with in Austin. Her name's Ruby Freeman, and she's amazing. Hands down, one of the best coaches and mentors I've ever worked with. I've also worked in small groups, big groups. I've worked in co-ed groups. I've worked with male coaches and mentors in the medicine space and not in the medicine space. Last year was a big year for myself and my company, and I had a lot of different mentors kind of on the docket that I was leveraging at any given time for certain things. So for me, it was really important to go into each relationship with an intention or an area that I wanted to go deeper on and learn about and focus on. Similarly, I also mentor people. So I have a client right now who's in Switzerland, and we're working together until the end of August. And I'm getting ready to launch a small group coaching program and mentorship program. And it's going to be for emerging conscious leaders, people who maybe aren't fully there in their careers yet, and they're wanting to lead in their lives and in their careers from a different place. But I'm also playing around with it. Like, I'm going to keep the group small and see how it feels for me. So a lot of the work that I'm doing right now is really grounded in how I want to feel, what I want my lifestyle to be like, and the energy that I want to get from the work that I'm doing. There has been a lot of times in my career where I felt energetically drained, or I was out of alignment and saying yes to so many things that I didn't really want to do. And then I would feel depleted and resentful. And so for me, my journey in the last 3 years has been undoing all of that wiring and taking all that down to, what is in my highest alignment for the greater good of all. That's how I want to lead. And then what gives me energy and what supports my purpose and allows me to be that channel for the messages that need to come through.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. That so many things came up. I mean, when you're talking about, the reconditioning, really, and it makes sense that we would need community and need like outside affirmation or confirmation, like just because we've been taught, a certain way. We've been taught, especially as women, that you just work for someone and you say yes. I mean, that's really the big thing. I used to work for the New York Mets when I graduated college and I had an internship, and it turned into like a temp job, and I was making $7 an hour working 12-hour days. And I remember seeing the like director of the PR department, and she had kids and she never saw them. And I realized what my future would look like. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I don't want that. I don't like, she was just stressed. And like, that was the, trajectory of women. It still is in corporate at all. Like, you just, climb the ladder. And what's devastating is years later, I found out she died of breast cancer. And that like stuck with me it still sticks with me that I'm like, we need to reprogram what we're taught. And so I think, like you said, investing in yourself, investing in a coach, there are definitely free resources. Like, I hope that we are one of those free resources, right now, like really providing insights to young women, young people who think there's only one path, and there's not, they're really, there's not. And I think coming back also to the, like, doing the work with medicine, without medicine, just like being in therapy, and also finding resources just for your own mental health. Like, it's amazing when we do that work. We can even find out that we weren't living aligned with our purpose. And then our whole new opportunities present themselves. And it's like, oh, actually, I want to be a therapist. And, like maybe you didn't realize that, like so many, like when we heal, it really, and like the processing, all of that work, like it really does clear space in us for new information or buried information to like be surfaced and to breathe.
Yeah. I think it's also, it creates space for like new definitions of things to come up if you're open. So for me, the example is what success means to me, and also what my values are. So a couple of years ago, when I had my first coach in 2020, my values were financial abundance, challenge, and opportunity. And so I like to work a lot and make a ton of money and like feel frustrated by all the challenges all the time, because I like that. A year later, we did my values again, and they were time freedom, creativity, and peace and tranquility. And those are still very much my values that I live in. And through that, I also redefine what success means to me, because before, success was about external validation, things, buying stuff, labels, lifestyle experiences. And now success is being able to work like how I want, where I want, when I want, from, a place of feeling energetically fulfilled and happy about my contribution. But it's not at all tied to money. Like that's like the last thing on my mind. I'm very much a believer of like that all works itself out when you are in your highest and purest expression of yourself.
That's awesome. And I just want to offer, like, to kind of just summarize a little bit what you just said, like, for people out there that are kind of workshopping this, like maybe you're at a career, point where you're like wanting a shift, or you're just embarking on your career, like journaling is so amazing, like doing a brain map, and so you said like, a journal prompt, what does success mean to me? Like, I love that. And then keeping, whether it's every few months, continuing to go back to that question and asking like, what are your values? I think that's really beautiful. And something that I've been using for years is like just a visualization of where do you see yourself, in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, and really painting a picture. And my husband and I recently did, like, we spent a Saturday, we got like lit candles and just had to like put all of our like LED lights on and sat on the floor and got a whiteboard and really just like, brain mapped, like what do we want for our life? Because, we want a family, like we think we do, but like what do we have to do to get there? We live in San Francisco. It's expensive and we love our loft. And it was beautiful because after that day, we found ourselves in situations where, you may have to make a decision, and it was like, oh, let's make this one because that's going to get us to that place. Like it makes decision making so much easier when you have this framework in your mind of where you're trying to get. It becomes more clear, and then all of a sudden you like find yourselves in these opportunities that lead to whatever you were looking for, really. And like you said, yes, I mean, I definitely want to make a lot of money. I come from tech sales, and I've been out of tech for 5, 7, 8, God, I don't even know, years, and I'm still not making as much as I was. And that's interesting. When I was like 25 and I was making more than I am at 34, but the freedom that I have in my life and the life I'm creating is, if I were to look back at, myself now in the future, whatever, like, damn, that's pretty cool, Alexa. Like you're doing okay. And I believe that, abundance is measured in different ways. And so, I just wanted to offer like a little bit of an exercise for people listening to like, pause and kind of brainstorm a little bit. Dream.
Yeah. I think I'll add to that just by saying that when you do this exercise, the invitation is to give yourself full permission to let go of everything that you've ever heard from anybody else. So like, get out of the shoulds, or your parents say this, or your partner thinks that, or your best friends think this, or your boss says that. Like, let all that shit go and just drop into truly your own heart space. Like, what does success look and feel like to me? And, if money were not an option, what would I be doing and spending my days? How would I be spending my days? And the energy that I want to feel and be in, less so even like the tasks and the doing stuff, but it's like, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? Because that helps you to then think through opportunities that will be in alignment of you achieving that feeling every day.
What do you think holds people back, or like is blocking people, like maybe people that you've worked with or just in society? Like, what is it, what you were just saying, like them, like people listening to just other people's ideas?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of projections. I think about when I started my career in recruiting at 17. I had no idea what recruiting was at 17. I just knew I didn't want to live at my parents' house anymore. I wanted a real job. And so when the real job came to me from someone much older who said, I can make you a recruiter, I'm like, okay. It wasn't what I chose for myself. I didn't even know. I just wanted experience. And then that became my entire life career path, And so now I'm in a place 20 years later where I have agency and I can decide for myself what I want to do and how I want to spend my time, and realizing that just because this was what my path was once doesn't mean I have to continue to do that. And so that's a lot of what I'm learning right now myself as a leader. I'll tell you, like the last couple of years, I was very scared to pivot from my domain expertise of like hiring. Like I just didn't know, could I take my skills and apply them in another way? And what I've learned about myself through now leading a couple of companies and hiring tens of thousands of people is that, yeah, I can actually apply my skills to anything in life. And that if it's one thing that I'm good at, it's reinventing and reinventing and reinventing the more I learn about myself. So it all goes back to like that investment that you make in yourself and where you're exposing yourself in different types of things. And, another example is I'm going to graduate school. I'm going to go get my master's in consciousness in action, even though I feel right now like I'm living consciousness in action, but I want to go learn and deepen my knowledge at a foundational level. And then I'm looking at going to get a PhD in regenerative leadership eventually, all just because like I'm interested in this and I want to nerd out on it. And I'm going to see where this windy road takes me and what that can, open up for me in the future. And so I think that for people, give yourself permission and just give yourself an hour of not listening to all the external noise and listen to yourself.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you were talking about, like evolution of a career as well. Like, I think that's something that, capitalism, where it's like, this is your path, you stick to this thing and you climb the ladder and that's that. And it's really beautiful to, when we're doing this visioning, to also be open that like we can't even imagine the potential that is.
Yeah, you may not have the answer right now,
right.
Especially with the pace in which the world is evolving and technology is changing and even the psychedelics industry is evolving. Like you may not look right now at the companies that exist that are hiring today and say, I won't fit into any of these roles for X, Y, and Z reason, right? But in 5 years' time, there's going to be a whole new set of skills and things that companies need. So stay open and stay curious. And if there are things that are interesting to you, double down on them and learn about them and get into the rooms where people are talking about this stuff more, even if that means that you're volunteering.
Yeah, and create those positions, based on what you want to do. If there's not a job out there, I've created my last 2 jobs, my titles, what I'm doing, because I saw a gap in companies and was like, hey, I can fill this. And I mean, your title, I called you CEO, but what is your title?
My title is Chief Conscious Connector.
Yeah, like that's amazing. It sounds like you created that title for yourself because that's what you want to do. So like, hell yeah, like that's amazing. And I created my title at PT because I realized even more after this, psychedelic science is like the value of collaborating and partnerships. And, it's, we can help each other, not for like our own personal benefit, but for the benefit of the people really who need this healing, like in this industry specifically, but in any industry, like there's so much competition. And when I realized, like, what if we all just like come together and help support each other's offerings and we all get a kickback or, we don't, but it's not about that, it's really about the movement. So yeah, I mean, I love that, you've just creating your own path, and congratulations on, going back to school. That's a lot, and that's amazing. I didn't even know those things existed, what you want to study, and that's so exciting and, encouraging to hear that leaders are wanting to lead consciously, because that's exactly what is missing in our society. It's just like mindless, leadership.
Yeah, people need a lot of help, and I feel like that's what I've been put on earth to do, is to help them become more aware, because I didn't know, like when I think about my leadership journey, I had no clue. This is what my book talks about, is like from being a conscious toxic boss to a conscious leader. I wouldn't even call myself toxic before. Like I had no idea my workaholism and my perfectionism and all the things that were so debilitating that I dealt with, that I was projecting onto my team, would be in this bucket of like, it's probably like kind of toxic behavior. And so now that I have gone through that and I'm still going through it and learning about myself, I want to help other leaders to create awareness, and people who are emerging leaders. Maybe you haven't run a team or a company or anything yet, and you're just leading yourself. There's a lot for you to be able to learn about yourself on your journey and to be able to lead from a conscious place. If the world had more conscious leaders, I mean, we'd all be in really good shape.
I'm really glad you brought that up. Could you elaborate more? Because I think it's really important for people who might not realize that they are a toxic leader. Like what, maybe like comparing like a toxic, leadership to conscious leadership?
Yeah. So for me specifically, I would say my perfectionism was very debilitating and toxic. So as an example, when I first started my team in 2019, I would delegate projects to the team, but then I would take them back and then I would do them myself because I would do them the right way, whatever my right way was. And think about somebody on the receiving end of that. They would get the project, they'd get excited, they'd start working on it, and then I would come in and take it back from them and push them out of the way and go, oh, I can do it better myself. Like that is not very nice behavior. And that would be demoralizing, right? And so I had no clue. I thought I was doing people favors by being the quarterback of everything. I also had a really big ego in that I was like thinking, if I don't do it right, then it's never going to get done. And it's got to be me owning and controlling. So I had this very controlling, almost like toxic masculine energy. Also like directing and doing and never truly being in my divine feminine of receiving and intuition and being open and receptive and supportive and nurturing. I was none of those things. And so I think about it like that. Sometimes you don't know, but other examples, micromanagement. I often hear, so, in my company DotConnect, not DoseConnect, a lot of my team has left the company. We haven't had a lot of hiring to do in tech, as you know. And these people have gone to work for other companies and they stay in touch with me and they text me, Slack me, call me, email me, and tell me about their new bosses and the new companies that they're working for and how toxic the cultures are, how there's drama, how there's gossip, how if they're not logged into their computer at a certain time, their bosses are lighting them up and saying, where are you? What are you doing? You're not working. All this stuff, this rhetoric that corporate companies like to throw at you to control you. I'm hearing about all of that. And what they continue to affirm is like how different we were as an organizational culture, how our company culture was all marching towards the same goals and winning together and supporting each other. Like one of our values was willingness to help. So if you had extra time on your plate, the expectations that you put your hand up and you see who needs your help and you help people, and you're only as good as your weakest link. So everybody is focused on getting that weakest link up to their highest potential and supporting their growth. And it was all this ecosystem of shared values and behaviors. But it took us 18 months to overhaul our culture to get to that, because the first 2 years of my company was me not knowing that I was toxic and creating this environment of everyone being scared of me or, being scared of messing up because they didn't want to get yelled at or called out or whatever I was deciding to do that day. And then as I started going through my healing journey and my own level of awakening and awareness, that's when I was like, holy shit, like I had no idea this is how I was being perceived, or that how I was doing these things was impacting my team. Because to me, everybody was like, oh yeah, nice. They would pretend that it was okay, but really, as I'm pulling back the layers, it was pretty troubling to see how my behavior was impacting the team. So it took a lot of me going, all right, I'm going to take 100% responsibility for this and then lead from the front. Because that's the other thing. You can't expect as a leader or CEO or an executive or whatever for everybody else to just get it and be how you want them to be. You set the tone and you bring the energy, and you are the one that leads the way and models the behavior. that's the other thing I see in leadership is a lot of like finger pointing. Well, they don't do this or they don't do that, like to your individual contributors or your earlier career people, or even your seniors, whoever's on your team. But at the end of the day, the culture and the company in which you are leading is a reflection of the consciousness of the leader. So if it's a disaster, but you're a conscious leader, well, then you're not a fully embodied conscious leader. And what I saw in my evolution was the more embodied I was, the less I had to say anything. It was more just me being and showing up with different energy. The more my team got enrolled in supporting the vision and enrolling themselves in their own healing and their own transformation and their own inner work. And it all just made sense. And so if nothing else, like I look back at the time with my company last year and just think, wow, we really accomplished what we wanted, which was for everyone to work at my company and feel like it was the best company they've ever worked with. They feel valued, they feel seen, they made great money, they were excited to come to work, they loved their team, they loved the customers, they loved the candidates we were talking to. And it's been really a beautiful reflection back now to get these messages, like despite them all working at these places that aren't very pleasant, I also affirm to them, like, it's your opportunity to be the light. This has all happened for a reason. Now it's your opportunity to take the seeds that we've planted and plant them in these new organizations and be the light for these companies that aren't there yet.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that work and for sharing it. It really resonates. Yeah, that's really cool. So what's the name of your book? What's it called?
My book's called Now Here, A Journey from Toxic Boss to Conscious Connector.
Amazing. And would you say it's geared towards leaders who want to become more conscious?
Yeah, I would say it's geared towards anyone who is like conscious, curious, and inner work curious. So it's really my journey for the last 3 years. It talks a lot about my personal life. It's focused in 4 areas of live, work, love, and awaken. So the last section talks a lot about spirituality and plant medicine and that level of work. But, the other sections talk about how I felt in my life, how I felt in my marriage, how I felt in working in my company and with different clients and my team, and how that's all evolved.
And would you say psychedelics played a big part in, that shift for you? Or were there other factors that, helped with your awakening?
Yeah, I think initially investing in myself through coaching and mentorship was the first step. And then psychedelics have expanded my consciousness and really deepened my healing and created so much forgiveness in my life, which has created so much freedom for me. And I can't have one without the other, but I definitely had to start my journey in the non-psychedelic realm and world. I had no idea. And so when I got to a place of even experimenting initially, I was just blown away and so open and wanted to continue the work and continue to be curious. And now, I have a good balance of how I look at my kind of year over year, like well-being plan. And last year I was all in and said yes to everything and was doing all the things and all the experiences. And this year I'm a little bit more balanced of like, yeah, I feel very complete with this, ayahuasca work for the time being. And when I feel called again, I'll go, but it's not like planned. Last year I was very planned about everything. And this year I'm much more like I'm feeling into what I want to do. And I don't have anything on the agenda as much as I'm just open to seeing what comes up and if it feels good and aligned when it comes up.
Cool. Amazing. Well, lastly, I am curious if you have any advice for, I guess, either business owners or individuals, as we're in a recession, I think, times are tough, people are getting laid off, like any career advice just in business. I know you mentioned networking and community. Is there anything else you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say be careful of what you're reading. Mainstream media and LinkedIn can send you down doom scrolling spirals. So really keep your well clear and stay focused on what's interesting to you. So if you're in a period or a season of being laid off, like understand that these seasons don't last forever, and not to get tied up in what the mainstream media is trying to feed us right now and what LinkedIn is trying to feed us right now. I mean, it's hard for me because as a recruiter and person who sits in that world, like my feed is filled every day with layoffs. It was really challenging to stay focused and motivated when I'm seeing all of this. But at the same time, I've been giving myself some space from that. And I don't want to get all caught up in that. I really just want to stay focused on what it is that I'm doing, my team's doing, what we're working towards. So same advice for somebody who's in that, like get off of LinkedIn and just focus on what it is that you're wanting to do next, especially if you find yourself in between. Maybe you are coming out of tech or you were impacted and you have a little bit of time on your hands, like going back to the exercises we talked about earlier and journaling and getting some clarity. If you can drop into your own inner heart space and your own voice, like what does that sound like? What does that say to you? And yeah, I would just say that, like, be mindful of what you're putting, all the inputs that are coming your way, and quiet the noise so that you can hear yourself and stay focused on that moving forward. And don't believe everything that you're reading, because there's just so much stuff out there that's triggering and it's not accurate.
Yeah. And something else that I would add to that too is putting yourself out there, like do the exercise, own your skill set, and then like reach out to a company. Even if you don't see a job description, like if there's someone you want to work with, just like hit them up and be like, hey, how, this is what I can do. Do you need any help here? Because I actually started my consulting career during the pandemic when I was on unemployment and built a business because I just started reaching out, went on Upwork, like freelance websites and built up my portfolio. And so there's, to your point, like if you find yourself in a kind of like a middle ground where you're either not working, it's easy to get desperate and be like, oh God, like, what do I do? What do I do? And it's like, try to like ground, you can freak out, let it out, and then like ground and be like, make a list of like the 5 companies that you would want to work for and like email them, find them on LinkedIn, and maybe get on LinkedIn for just that purpose.
Yeah, no, totally. Be very intentional, right? With LinkedIn. Yes. Don't get caught up in all of the stuff that is being shared all the time to keep us scared. I think remembering and being mindful of the energetics, right? So to your point, like, feel your feelings, process whatever it is that you're moving through. Like, oh, I'm laid off, I'm pissed off, I'm la da da. Yeah, get through that feeling of it somatically, release it, but then understand the energetics. Because if you're going to be leading from a place of fear in your life, it's only going to attract more of that stuff. If you're really leading from a place of faith and looking at this as an opening for something new in your life, then that is when something new will show up. You have to be in that energetic vibe versus being in your lower vibe energies. Easier said than done. I'm not saying that this is like, oh, just do this, but at least now there's an invitation to be mindful about it. The other thing I'll just say tactically is on our DoseConnect.io website, we have a talent community. So you can join that for free. Put your information in there. You can be anonymous if you want, if you don't want to fully come out with it yet. But we have companies that also list opportunities there that may be looking. And we have people within our network that maybe they don't post that they're hiring, but we know that they're hiring. And so we're happy to match you that way as well.
Amazing. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, where people can find you. So DoseConnect.io. And what about you personally?
Yeah, me personally, you can catch me on Instagram at I am Dom Farnan. I'm also on LinkedIn, Dom Farnan, and then my website is domfarnan.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was really amazing. Having this conversation, I got a lot of value out of it, and I know that our community will too. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, bye.